Hi there, this is Lori Edge-Hughes and this is your 4-Leg Rehab Minute. And in today's minute, I want to talk about the pros and cons of protocols. So basically, we're looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? If you know me, you might very well know that I am not a huge fan of protocols, despite the fact that I have created several. I'm not a huge fan. So, like I said, I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of protocols. And for whatever, post-op protocol, whatever kind of protocol for treating XYZ condition. Okay, so good. Good is that a protocol can create a rough guideline, rough timelines, and they might provide you a bunch of ideas for how to treat. And I know when I've created ones, it's like, I try and think about what would be good here and what would be some exercises at the lower end of this category and what would be some exercises at the higher end of this category, or in a time frame that you would think this would be the beginning of that time frame, this would be closer to the end of that time frame. And so they could be a good starting point for those without training in canine rehab, or for those without access to someone trained in canine rehab. So that's the good. The bad is I think that there can be an over-reliance and a removal of individualization, where you would assess and treat the actual patient in front of you by looking at how is this going? What is my stage of healing? What is the personality of the dog? Is the owner listening to me? All of those things that I think are so much more important is making it individual for your patient. I think you also then have to be mindful of who they are being used by. So are they being used by a professional without a professional with rehab training? Then they're going to kind of take them as, here's some ideas and you take it with a grain of salt. If they're used by somebody without rehab training, if it's a professional, so let's say a veterinarian without rehab training, well, that's going to be one better than, let's say, somebody without any kind of professional guidance at all, because that can get ugly. If it's like, well, look at, it says I can try standing on a Bosu ball and doing sit to stands, or I can try off-leash running at this point in time. Because if you're just looking at time as your guideline, that could be ugly. That could definitely be ugly. And it can also be ugly just in that it might not be effective either. And if I use the example of sit to stand as an exercise for whatever, post-op cruciate or anything, it's like, how many dogs have we all seen who can do a sit to stand with one leg, who, the other leg is sitting way out here, but I'm doing my sit to stand exercises. They're doing sweet nothing. I so really want to use expletives when I'm talking about this, so I'm trying really hard. Okay, so without professional guidance, so if this is just up and online and an owner can use and they don't have somebody, it has a potential to get ugly. So if you're creating a protocol or looking at protocols, you kind of have to think about, what if this just got in somebody's hands, and could they potentially do too much? Okay. The other thing to realize in, I guess, the bad category is that they're all made up. They are all made up. Even the ones that I created, they're all made up. So really, you have to think about who created this and what is their background. How many of this condition have they seen, treated, followed throughout their course of their rehab. What resources, literature, factors, experience, again, falls in, did they include as part of its creation? So when you realize that all protocols are made up, you really have to factor in a whole pile more, okay? And then the ugly is that in the wrong hands, there can be danger, okay? In the wrong hands, somebody can be doing too much, or like my sit to stand example, they can be doing a whole pile of something that is completely ineffectual and useless. So I guess the protocol has its place, and likely makes more sense in things that are far more things you've seen. Post-op cruciate repairs, right? But then we all recognize there's going to be things where it is so variable, whether it's a surgery, whether it's, let's say, recovery from an FCE, or anything neurologic for that matter. You don't know how they're recovering, so you can't put a timeline on that. And then some other things that are just very uncommon, which would be hard to put protocols on as well. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Yeah, I'm going to link to a bunch of my protocols, but I'm going to tell you, please use them with individualization for your patient in front of you after you've assessed and trialed and said, yes, this is okay to add in here, and go ahead and put in other things that you like, and depending on the stage of the dog. So there you go. That's the good and bad and the ugly, the pros and cons of protocols. Till next time, cheers.